The night my life quietly tilted off its normal path started with water dripping onto my floor and ended with me sleeping under my best friend's roof, trying not to notice his mother more than I should have. My name is Ethan, I'm 24, living alone in a tiny apartment in downtown Portland, Oregon. The kind of place where you can cook dinner, work, and sleep without taking more than 10 steps. I freelance as a coder, mostly small website jobs, fixing bugs, building things no one will remember. Some months are good, some are tight. My routine is simple. Coffee, laptop, work, basketball with friends when I need to clear my head. No girlfriend, no drama. I always told myself I liked it that way. Last Wednesday night, the rain was coming down hard. Portland rain that feels personal, like it's aiming just for you. I got home around 10 gacha, soaked, tired, craving cheap ramen. The moment I opened my door, I heard it. Drip, drip, drip. I looked up and saw water leaking straight through my ceiling, right over my couch. It was pooling on the floor, inches from my laptop charger. I grabbed a bucket, shoved it underneath and called my landlord. He sounded half asleep and annoyed. Old roof, he said. Might take a few days. Find somewhere else to stay. Then he hung up. I stood there in wet socks, staring at my ceiling, realizing I didn't really have anywhere to go. Hotels were too expensive. Most of my friends lived in places just as small as mine. Then I thought of Caleb, my best friend since college. Same age as me. Solid guy, the kind who never lets you down. I texted him, told him about the leak, asked if I could crash for a few days. His reply came almost instantly. Dude, get over here. Plenty of room. Caleb lived about 30 minutes outside the city in a quiet suburb in a house he shared with his mom. I'd met her a couple of times before. Her name was Lillian. She was 45, a piano teacher, widowed for years. Always polite, always composed, pretty in a way that felt calm and distant, like she was standing behind glass. I packed a backpack and drove through the rain. Their neighborhood was the kind with clean lawns and porch lights, glowing soft against the dark. Caleb opened the door with a grin, immediately making fun of how soaked I looked. The house smelled like cinnamon and warmth. Wood floors, framed photos on the walls. It felt nothing like my place. Lillian came out from the kitchen, drying her hands. She wore a sweater and jeans, her dark hair pulled back neatly. Ethan, she said, her voice calm, I'm sorry about your apartment. You're welcome to stay as long as you need. I thanked her, suddenly feeling like a kid again. They set me up on a sofa bed in the living room. It faced a window looking out at the backyard, rain tapping softly against the glass. We ordered pizza and ate together at the dining table. Caleb talked non-stop about work. Lillian mostly listened, asking questions here and there. When she spoke, she chose her words carefully, like they mattered. I caught myself watching her more than once, not in a creepy way, just noticing. The way she held her glass, the way her eyes softened when Caleb joked. There was something quiet about her that pulled at me. After dinner, Caleb went upstairs early. Lillian cleared the plates and told me to get some rest. I lay on the sofa bed listening to the rain, telling myself it was only for a few days. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee. Grey light filled the room. I wandered into the kitchen and found Lillian already dressed, pouring coffee from a French press. She asked how I slept, poured me a mug, black, no sugar, exactly how I liked it. We sat across from each other at the table, talking softly. She asked about my work. I told her about freelancing, about the freedom and the stress. She listened, really listened. Not like someone being polite, but like she cared. Caleb came down, rushed, grabbed food, and left for work with a joke and a wave. Suddenly it was just me and her in the house. The day passed quietly. I worked on my laptop in the living room while Lillian taught piano lessons in the back room. Music drifted through the house, mixing with the sound of rain. By evening, it felt normal being there. Too normal. That night, Caleb texted saying he'd be out of town for work for a couple days. I offered to leave. Lillian stopped me without hesitation. Don't be silly, she said. The house is big enough. As the door closed behind Caleb, the house felt different, quieter, heavier. I told myself I was overthinking it, but something had already started to change and I could feel it, even if I didn't yet understand where it was leading. The house felt too quiet once Caleb was gone. Not empty, just still, like it was holding its breath. I tried to shake the feeling and focus on work. but it was harder than it should have been. Every sound felt louder. Every movement felt noticed. Lillian went about her day like normal. Piano lessons in the afternoon, light cleaning, making dinner. I stayed in the living room with my laptop, but my attention kept drifting. I could hear the piano through the walls, soft and steady. The music wasn't loud, but it carried weight. Like she wasn't just playing notes, like she was saying something without words. By the time evening came, I realized I hadn't finished much work at all. Lillian cooked dinner again. She didn't have to, but she insisted. I offered to help, and this time she let me. We stood side by side in the kitchen, chopping vegetables, moving around each other without speaking much. The air felt warm, comfortable, too comfortable. She put on a jazz record while we cooked. Old school stuff. The kind that fills the room without demanding attention. "You like jazz?" I asked. She nodded. "It reminds me of who I used to be." That caught my attention. I didn't ask her to explain. Somehow I already understood. We ate at the table together. Just the two of us. No rush, no TV, just quiet conversation. She asked me about my life. Really asked. Not surface questions, real ones. What I wanted, where I saw myself going. I told her the truth that I didn't really know that most days. I was just trying to keep moving forward. She smiled at that. Not a sad smile, a knowing one. After dinner, we sat in the living room. Rain tapped against the windows again, steady and soft. She sat on one end of the couch. I sat on the other. Space between us, but not as much as there had been before. She told me about her husband. Not in detail, just enough. How losing him changed everything. How the house felt different after. How silence slowly became normal. "I forgot what it feels like to be seen," she said quietly. I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't rush to fill the space. I just listened. That night, when I went to sleep on the sofa bed, my mind wouldn't slow down. I kept thinking about her voice. The way she looked at me when she talked. Like she wasn't just talking to pass time. The next day, the rain came back heavier. Grey skies, wind rattling the windows. Lillian left in the morning to teach lessons across town. The house felt strangely empty without her. I tried to work, but my thoughts kept drifting. I kept replaying conversations, little moments, things that probably meant nothing but felt like something. When she came back in the afternoon, her coat damp from the rain, the house felt full again. She smiled when she saw me, like she was glad I was still there. We cooked together again that evening. This time our movements were more relaxed, easier. We talked about music, about college, about small regrets that didn't sound small when said out loud. She told me she stopped listening to certain songs after her husband died. Said they hurt too much. I told her I stopped listening to some songs after my breakup. Said they felt like they belonged to someone else. She looked at me, then really looked at me and said, "Exactly." The moment felt heavier than it should have. Later, while cleaning up, I reached for a glass on a high shelf. It slipped, shattered on the floor. I apologized, embarrassed. She crouched down to help me clean it up. We were close, too close. Our hands reached for the same piece of glass at the same time. Her fingers brushed my wrist. She didn't pull away for a second. Neither did I. When I looked up, her expression wasn't distant or polite anymore. It was raw, unfiltered, like she'd forgotten to put her guard back on. "I'm not used to having someone this close," she said softly. Then she pulled her hand back just as quickly as the moment had started. We finished cleaning in silence. That night I lay awake again, staring at the ceiling, telling myself to get a grip, telling myself I was reading too much into things. She was lonely. I was a guest. Lions existed for a reason, but my body didn't care about logic. My thoughts kept circling back to her touch, her voice, that look in her eyes. Around 9, the power went out. The house went dark. The rain got louder. A leak started again in the living room ceiling, dripping into the bucket. I was fumbling with my phone light when I saw her standing there holding a lantern. "Come upstairs," she said. "It's dry up there." I hesitated, then followed. Her room was quiet and warm. Candles, a sofa near the window, a bottle of wine. She poured 2 glasses. The storm outside felt like it was closing us in, cutting us off from everything else. We talked slowly, honestly. Then she said it. "I don't want to be his mother right now." Not tonight. Quote, my heart stopped. I didn't move. I didn't kiss her. I just reached out and took her hand. She let me. And in that moment, I knew things had crossed into a place neither of us could pretend away anymore. We sat there holding hands longer than we should have, long enough for my thoughts to stop racing and start settling into something heavier, real. The storm outside kept pounding the roof, thunder rolling low and distant, like it was warning us and daring us at the same time. Neither of us spoke at first. There was nothing safe to say. Lillian was the one who finally pulled her hand away slowly, like she didn't want to, but knew she had to. She stood up and walked a few steps toward the window, hugging her arms around herself. "This is complicated," she said quietly. "Yeah," I replied. "It is." She turned back to me, her face soft but serious. "Caleb is my son. You're his best friend. I don't want to hurt him, and I don't want to hurt you." I nodded. Every word landed exactly where it should. "I don't want that either." Quote. We stood there in the dim light, the lantern flickering between us. The moment hadn't disappeared, but it had changed shape, less like a spark, more like something steady waiting. "You should sleep," she said finally. We both should. She showed me to the small guest room down the hall. It wasn't fancy, just a bed, a lamp, and a window streaked with rain. As I lay down, I could still feel the warmth of her hand in mine, like it had left a mark. Sleep came slow. Morning arrived gray and quiet. The storm had softened into a light drizzle. For a moment I forgot where I was. Then everything came rushing back. I got dressed and went downstairs. Lillian was already in the kitchen, coffee brewing, hair tied back, wearing a simple sweater. She looked like herself again, calm, collected. But when our eyes met, something passed between us. A shared memory we didn't need to explain. We talked like normal people about coffee, about the weather, about nothing important. And yet, everything felt important. Oh, text buzzed on my phone. "Caleb on my way back. Be there in a couple hours." The words tightened my chest. I told Lillian. She nodded, unsurprised. Okay, I packed my bag slowly, checking the ceiling one last time. The leak had stopped. Figures. When she joined me in the living room, neither of us rushed. There was no awkwardness, just wait. "Thank you for letting me stay," I said. "For everything." She smiled, small but sincere. "Thank you for seeing me." We stood there a moment longer than necessary. Then I heard a car pulling into the driveway. The spell broke. Caleb walked in loud and cheerful, talking about traffic and work like nothing in the world had changed. I forced myself to match his energy, to smile, to joke, to act normal, but I felt like I was standing on the edge of something fragile. I left soon after, drove back to my apartment. The leak was fixed. Life went back to its routine. Coffee, laptop, work. But I wasn't the same. Days passed, then a week. I tried not to think about her, about the rain, about that night. I told myself it was a moment, a shared loneliness. Nothing more. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I bought that wine again. It's still on the table. That was all. No name, no pressure, just an open door. I stared at the screen for a long time, knowing that whatever I chose next would matter. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel numb anymore. I didn't reply to her message right away. I stared at my phone for a long time, letting it sit on the table while the coffee in front of me went cold. My apartment was quiet again, too quiet. And for the first time, that silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt empty. I kept telling myself the same things. She was my best friend's mother. This could hurt people. This could get messy. This could end badly. But another thought kept pushing through. Softer but stronger. I hadn't felt seen like that in a long time. 2 days passed, then 3. The message stayed there unread, like it was waiting to see who I'd choose to be. The guy who always played it safe, or the one who finally admitted something real had happened. On the 4th evening, it started raining again. Not a storm this time. Just a steady, quiet rain. The kind that doesn't demand attention, but changes the mood of everything around it. I grabbed my jacket and my keys before I could overthink it. The drive to her house felt shorter than I remembered. The neighborhood looked the same. Clean lawns, porch lights glowing, her house waiting at the end of the street. I sat in my car for a full minute before getting out. Then I knocked. The door opened and there she was. Lillian looked surprised for half a second. Then she smiled. Not polite, not guarded, just real. "Hi, Ethan," she said. "Hi," I replied. She stepped aside without asking questions. The house smelled the same. Cinnamon, warmth familiar now. We sat at the kitchen table with the wine between us. No rush to pour it. No rush to talk. We both knew why I was there. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said softly. "I wasn't sure either," I admitted, but I kept thinking about that night, about how honest it felt. She nodded. Me too. We talked for a long time about boundaries, about fear, about Caleb, about what this was and what it wasn't. There were no promises, no big declarations, just honesty. "I don't want to hide," she said, "and I don't want to pretend it didn't matter." "It mattered to me," I said. "Still does." That was enough. We didn't rush into anything dramatic. No sudden moves, no lines crossed without thought. When I finally leaned in and kissed her, it was slow and careful, like we were both making sure it felt right. It did. We took things one step at a time after that. Quiet dinners, long talks, moments stolen when the house was empty. It wasn't easy. It wasn't simple, but it was real. Eventually we told Caleb. He didn't take it well at first. There was anger, confusion, distance. I gave him space. So did she. We didn't push. Time did what it always does. It softened the sharp edges. One night, months later, Caleb looked at me and said, "Just don't hurt her." I promised him I wouldn't. Life didn't turn into some perfect story. We had hard conversations. We had days where the age gap felt loud, days where guilt tried to creep back in. But we also had mornings with coffee and quiet smiles, music playing through the house again, laughter where there used to be silence. That night he left me at his house. Changed everything. Not because of what happened, but because two lonely people finally admitted they didn't want to be invisible anymore.